My name is Caden Coleman, and welcome to We Don't Owe You Shit. I told my daughter that I have a vagina. Yes, I did. I'll get into the story as to why I told my daughter that I have a vagina. What happened was, I was actually on TikTok Live. And on TikTok, if you're ever on TikTok, then you know that TikTok is filled with trolls. So I was on live. It was only me on live, but you could very clearly hear my 2-year-old in the background. And I often get the same question. And the question is usually, are you going to tell your daughter that you're trans? This particular question was, are you going to tell your daughter that you're her mom and her dad and that you have a vagina? So my response was to ask her right there on live. After I did that, obviously she didn't give a shit because she's 2, right? Well, I was like, I think this is a really important teaching moment because I need people to understand that our kids don't care. Like, our kids do not care. You're whoever you say you are to them, and all that matters to them is whether or not they are loved and well taken care of. Well, of course, in true right-wing conservative fashion, my video was blown completely out of context. And the issue here is that I shouldn't have told my 2-year-old that I have a vagina, and I shouldn't have told her that she was trans, because apparently these two things are not age appropriate. So let's talk about it. When is it appropriate to talk about transgender people and queer people to toddlers? The short answer is this. There is a fact that there are queer parents and trans parents that exist. Why is it inappropriate, age-wise, to tell your children exactly who you are? It's okay for children to see mommy and daddy kiss and embrace, which is sexuality, by the way. But it's not okay for daddy and daddy to let the same age child know that gay love also exists. Why is it that heterosexual cisgender love can exist and not be rooted in sex, but transgender people and queer people, our relationships, the first thing that most people think of is sex? Why is that? I remember very vividly growing up and going to things like the grocery store and seeing cisgender heterosexual couples all but engage in sexual intercourse in the middle of the produce section, and nobody batted an eyelash. And there were kids all around. Y'all are groping on each other's butts and loving on each other and caressing each other and kissing on each other, making out, doing all of the things without any regard for the fact that there are children around, and nobody cares. Why? Because you're straight. Why? Because you're cisgender. Nobody cares, right? That is sexuality. Sexuality isn't just sex, right? Just because you are a majority as a cisgender heterosexual person, that doesn't make you normal and okay and everybody else deviant and abnormal, right? That's unfair. I've literally had people tell me that it's okay for cisgender sex to happen. It's okay for cisgender heterosexual people to be sexual. It's not okay for anyone else to do it, especially when there are kids involved, which is strange as hell to me. So recently, Candace Owens, and if you don't know who Candace Owens is a black woman who likes to shuck and jive for her masses and say that black people are playing victim and that racism is not actually a thing and that we all have the same level playing field and that systemic racism is just an excuse for black people to be lazy. She also hates queer people. She also hates trans people. She hates herself because I also believe that she hates women as well, but whatever. Anyway, she came across my video and I didn't bother watching it. I just saw that she came across it. And of course, the comments were doing what I expected the comments to do. I've been viral before. So, being viral doesn't bother me. There's nothing that anybody can call me or tell me that's going to hurt my feelings at this point. But it got me to thinking, if I was a cisgender woman and I told my child, whether on camera or off, that I had a vagina, would anybody care? The answer, we all know, is no. We know that it's not a problem. I have since been receiving some hate mail. I don't normally talk about this, but I've gotten messages that were direct threats like, hey there, faggot, I got something for you. I've gotten people say that they're going to take my children away, and I quote, it may take some time, but it's going to happen. All because I told my child that I have a vagina, which I do. Right? Sometimes I entertain trolls. I'm not going to lie to you. It's a form of entertainment for me. When I responded to this person that said they were going to have my children taken away, because I just find that to be absolutely absurd, because there are actually children out here that are experiencing abuse, sexual, mental, emotional, physical abuse. And you honestly are going to use resources that are really needed elsewhere to try to have a child taken away from a loving, caring, nurturing home. Simply because I'm trans, simply because I practice sex positivity and I don't believe that body parts are inherently sexual, that's crazy as hell to me. Anyway, so I reached out to this lady. Her name was Margaret. And she said, why would you tell your child about your sexual vagina? I didn't know that the vagina existed simply for sexual reasons. I thought that there were many uses for a vagina, but according to these people, it's only for sex. I think it's only for sex when it's for trans people, but, whatever. So I had to let her know, like, that whole region is used for so many different things, aka urination, aka childbirth. Like, the vagina isn't inherently sex related, and it also is not a vulgar word. It is the anatomically correct word for that body part, vulva or vagina, right? So why is it that when I said it to my child, it was an issue? Why is it that me telling my child exactly who I am equals me grooming my child? What am I grooming her for? Oh, I was also accused of incest. I want to point out that I was fully clothed. It's not like I pulled my genitals out. It's not like I was engaging in any sexual activities. Children can and should know the appropriate names for their body parts. This person went on to tell me that a child should not know the names of body parts until they're 12 and older. I'm going to read you something because, of course, I'm always going to come with facts. There is Sandy K. Wertel, a professor of psychology and an associate dean at the University of Colorado in Colorado Springs. They did a research study showing that preschoolers in Head Start knew the correct names for their body parts, but referred to their genitals by a wide array of slang terms, from the familiar my pee-pee, my wee-wee, to my coochie, my piddle-whittle. In this study, children learn the correct names better from their parents than from their teachers. It goes on to say, ideally, parents should start teaching those terms even before their children can talk. Naming the genitals just as they name any other body parts is the inevitable daily round of small child body care and grooming, and yes, diapering and potty time. It goes on to say, once they learn the correct terms, they're going to use them. Often they use them in public, and that's often embarrassing for parents when they're at the grocery store in line and their daughter says, "My vagina itches." But that, of course, is another teachable moment, a chance to explain about the private in private parts. When children are old enough to talk, looking at picture books together is a good way to discuss these issues. Here's the thing. She goes on to say that I think that when we leave out the names of vagina, penis, testicles, then we are saying in one way or another that those parts are parts we can't talk about. Once a child knows those terms, some families may want to introduce special family names they like to use. Here are the reasons why it's important for young children to learn the anatomically correct terms for genital. This is according to a professional who did research. This is not coming from Caden Coleman. Knowing the terminology may make children less vulnerable to sexual abuse. Prospective offenders may understand that children who are comfortable with the right names for body parts are children whose parents are willing to discuss these subjects, and children who probably will have been told about the types of touching that are not okay. Okay, so Caden, why is it that you told your child that you have a vagina? I want to be supercalifragilisticexpialidociously clear here. That was not the first time that I told my child what body parts I have. Here's why. Anyone who is a parent knows that we as parents have zero, and I mean zero, privacy. I don't get to shower without the shower curtain being pulled back. I don't get to go to the restroom without her standing literally right on top of me, wanting to sit in my lap. When a child reaches a certain intellectual level, they start questioning what everything is. When my daughter points at a body part on me and says, "What's that?" I tell her what it is. I use the anatomically correct words for what body parts are where. To me, telling her that I have a vagina is no different than telling her I have an elbow. They are all body parts. And again, they are not inherently about sex. Talking about sex, of course, is age appropriate. Talking about sex organs is also super important. Here's the thing. If I hid my body away from my child, mind you, the child that came out of my body, people would also accuse me of hiding that I'm trans and therefore being deceptive towards my child. I believe wholeheartedly that there are people on this earth that believe that children are stupid and that they can't understand certain things. And I also believe that those ideas come from projection, because there are adults that cannot understand why people are trans, or that people are trans, or that different types of trans people exist. And because of this, they assume that children are not going to be able to wrap their heads around it either. The beauty of children, though, is that they are not bogged down with hate and discrimination and maliciousness and indoctrinated with religion that condemns anything that doesn't align with their beliefs, right? So here's the thing. If you want to teach your child that you have a wee-wee, or if you want to teach your child that certain body parts are things that we should be ashamed of and not speak about, that's your business. As somebody who was sexually abused as a child and did not feel comfortable talking about my body to my parents, thusly not reporting said abuse, I know how important it is to be able to have open dialogue with my children about our body parts and what body parts are okay to be touched and what body parts are not. Me wanting to keep my children safe is not grooming them. It's not incest. I don't even think about sex when I'm thinking about my kids. For those of you who do, I suggest that you seek therapy. It's weird. And honestly, I feel those of you who call trans people and queer people groomers because you're thinking about sex and children in the same sentence, you're projecting. You're projecting, and there's no other way around it. I'm sorry. I do not think about sex when it comes to my kids. I don't even think about sex when it comes to how I got pregnant. Like, I don't even think, like, my brain does not go to intercourse. My brain does not go to genitals. I just know that I conceived my child and now my child is here. The other thing that I've had an issue with is people telling me that my daughter is too young to know that I'm trans. Why is my daughter too young to know who I am? Does she know what transgender means? Absolutely not. Does she know what it means to transition? Absolutely not. Is it okay for me to tell my child that I'm transgender? Yes. That's no different than telling her that I'm a teacher or that I'm fat or that I'm short. It's who I am. Does she fully understand what those things are yet? Of course not. But that's why you introduce words, and then as they grow older and are able to understand how things work, you expound on those things, as I did with my 9-year-old. I showed my daughter a childhood picture of me. She was a bit confused because she was like, wait a minute, I was taught that a girl looks like this and a boy looks like that. That's fine, because as she gets older, I can explain to her, Daddy was born a girl. Daddy gave birth to you. Daddy was not comfortable being a girl, so now Daddy is Daddy. See how I explained that? I didn't have to talk about sex. I didn't try to convince her to hate her body. I didn't do anything like that. I used I statements. I only talked about myself. I have no interest in convincing anyone to be trans or gay or part of the community, but I do have interest in my children knowing that it is okay to be a part of that community, meaning that it is okay to exist as who you are, as long as you're not harming anyone else. And nobody in the trans or queer community are harming anyone by simply being trans or gay. Okay? So am I traumatizing or confusing my child? No, I'm not. The proof is in my 9-year-old. I think a lot of people forget that I have a 9-year-old as well. She is tolerant. She is accepting. She is confident. You want to know why? Because I started having those conversations with her when she was the same age as Journey. So she fully understands where she came from, who her parents are, why she doesn't have a mom. But she does have a parent that gave birth to her that loves her unconditionally. She has a safe space that she can come to, which is more than I can say for a lot of you people who only care to make sure that your children turn out to be a little version of you. You don't care if they're happy. You only care if they're not gay or not trans or Christian and not Jewish or atheist. You only have what's in your brain, your preconceived idea of what your child could be, and be damned with their happiness. Those children are the children that are going to grow up and have to have a childhood that they have to heal from. My children, on the other hand, I'm not sitting here saying I'm perfect, but I know I'm a damn good parent. I'm open with my kids, and I am down to answer any questions. Let me ask you this. When my child noticed that my dog had an appendage when he rolled over to get tummy scritches, she said, "What's that?" I said, "That's Brooklyn's penis. We don't touch that. That's Brooklyn's private part. Just like you have a private part, so does Brooklyn." She uses the anatomically correct terminology for our dog's genitals. Does that make me into bestiality? No. Does that mean I'm grooming her to somehow have sex with my dog? Absolutely not. But what is wrong with knowing what those parts are and telling her that those are private parts? There's nothing wrong with it. The difference here is that I'm trans. And because I'm trans, you automatically see me as some sexual deviant. You see me as some predator. I do not see children and see anything sexual. I see children and I see future minds. I see people that should be nurtured. I see human beings that should be able to grow up and experience life and not just survive. I see children that have a clean slate, and I do envy them because I did not have a great upbringing, and I'm going to make sure that my children do. And there's nothing that Candace Owens or the Shade Room or transphobic or homophobic people will ever do or say that's going to change that for me. I am the best parent for my child. Those are my children. I don't just do the bare basics. I don't do the bare minimum. I make sure that my children are going to be able to navigate this world, and I do so with love. Period. Point blank. When it comes down to it, it's a double-edged sword. I'm damned if I do, I'm damned if I don't. If I did not tell my children that I am transgender, you would accuse me of lying. The fact that I do tell my children that that I am transgender in an age-appropriate manner, I'm still wrong. I want you all to just admit that you don't like trans people, and you feel like me being trans means that I shouldn't have kids. And if I was gay, you would feel the same way. You feel like only cisgender heterosexual people should have kids. Damn the fact that it's cisgender heterosexual people that are unaliving their children and stuffing them in deep freezers, that are neglecting them and tying them up in basements, and there's an overwhelming amount of CPS cases, valid CPS cases against cisgender heterosexual people. You think that somebody's sexuality and gender identity is what determines whether or not they are a capable parent. And honestly, that's a you thing, not a me thing. And this is the last time I am going to address it. I want you all to have the day that you deserve. Feel free to give me a follow on Instagram @CadenXOfficial. Same username on TikTok. I'm out.